we proudly present the Beatles!
Hello and welcome everyone to the second part of my Get Ready With Me concert series. If you're new to the channel, hi, my name is Emma, and this is a series where I get ready for concerts I wish I could have attended. So today I'm taking you back all the way to 1962 to go and see the Beatles play at the Cavern Club. This concert is super special because it was the first Beatles concert to ever be on TV. And if you want to see how I created that early 60s Pattie Boyd inspired look, and you want to learn a bit more about the early Beatles and this iconic concert, just keep on watching. So it's Wednesday, August 22nd in 1962, and we're about to see the Beatles at the Cavern Club. So this is kind of different to the prior David Bowie part because the David Bowie concert was a big concert at kind of the height of his career, while the concert that this video is about was very early on in the Beatles' career. In fact, it only happened a week after the Beatles were formed in the way that we know them now. Because only a week prior to this concert, P.T. Best as the drummer left the Beatles and was replaced with Ringo Starr. So this is a very classic 60s makeup look. It's highly inspired by Pattie Boyd, who I'm sure you all know and who later married George Harrison, and it's just a very doll-like classic 60s look. And so to achieve that look, the first thing that I'm gonna do is to take this small fluffy brush, and I'm using this light pink color, and I'm just gonna apply it all over my lid. So the Cavern Club at 10 Matthew Street in Liverpool was opened in 1957 as a jazz club, but it later became the center of rock and roll music in Liverpool and pretty much England and all over the world. So the Cavern Club is closely associated with the term Mersey beat. The Mersey beat music genre was basically a mixture of rock and roll, skiffle, and classic pop music. So basically the kind of music the Beatles made. So next up I'm going to use a bigger brush and I'm just going to blend out the eyeshadow. So in the early 60s, the Beatles played almost 300 shows at the Cavern Club. However, the concert that we're attending today is kind of special because it was the first time that the Beatles were filmed while performing. So what I really like about this concert is that it happened before the Beatles got famous. It happened before Beatlemania. It happened before the Beatles became the biggest band ever, before they went on to break every single music record that there had ever been. So I'm gonna link you a video of the footage in the description box below because I think it's so interesting to look at it. So when you look at it, you see them performing and you see how much fun they have, and you kind of can see how big of a future they're going to have. You can see how special they are and how their chemistry on stage is, and that they just kind of create something so new and so powerful that it's really not surprising that they won the world by storm. So next up I'm taking this small little round brush and I'm just going in with this silver color and I'm gonna apply it in the inner corner of my eyes. So this really helps with that 60s doll-like look. It opens up the eyes and it just gives you a very fresh look. So during their performance, the Beatles only played 2 songs. The first one being Some Other Guy and the second one being Kansas City, Hey Hey Hey. And as said before, at that time, the Beatles had only played with Ringo Starr for a week, and a lot of people weren't too happy about them replacing P.T. Best. And so at the end of their performance of Some Other Guy, you can actually hear someone shouting, "We want P.T. back." However, with Ringo Starr, they really had found a drummer that worked for them. So while George had always been a bit shyer and he didn't really want it to be the center of attention, both John Lennon and Paul McCartney really wanted to be in the spotlight. So with Ringo, they had found a drummer who first of all was talented enough to help them reach their full musical potential, and second of all didn't take the spotlight away from them. So next up, using this angled little brush, I'm gonna go in with a dark brown color and I'm kind of gonna draw these little twiggy bows or 60s bows that were super popular at the time. So to achieve that look, I'm making sure that I don't have too much product on the brush because I don't want a crazy amount of fallout. And then I'm kind of looking straight up and I'm starting on the inner corner of my eye, kind of making a little mark here. Then making one above my eye and then one right down here. And now I'm just gonna connect the 3. So just by sketching them out and being very light with them at first place, it's just way easier to correct them. So now I'm just gradually taking more and more product and working that in. So now that that side is done, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other eye. So being able to attend that concert would kind of put us in a very unique and privileged position, because these early Beatles concerts were pretty much the only concerts where you hadn't waited in line hours and hours to get in, and where you could actually hear the music because the audience wasn't screaming because they were so excited to see them. So the Cavern Club is a kind of small venue, it's pretty intimate, and it was notorious for being hot and steamy. So there are so many stories of people telling that they were there and that the sweat came literally dripping down the walls because people were dancing and it was just so hot and steamy in there. So other than the David Bowie concert we attended, at this point we probably wouldn't even be that excited to see them. We would just think, oh, it's going to be a nice night, there's this nice band, the Beatles. They were kind of famous at that point, but not really. Like, some people in Liverpool knew them, they had just come back from Hamburg, but they were still super young and not really successful yet. They had just met Ryan Epstein, their manager, in the Cavern Club, and this was really before they were this worldwide phenomenon. So the next step is Eyeliner, but because I can't really talk to you while doing that, I would like to put this concert a bit more into perspective for you. So in August of 1962, the Beatles were still extremely young. With being just 22 years old, Ringo was the oldest one, followed by John, who was 21, Paul, who was 20, and George, who was only 19 years old. So this was right after they came back from Hamburg. They played a couple of years in Hamburg, and I actually have quite a special connection to that, because as a kid I used to visit Hamburg every single year, and Hamburg is pretty much filled with Beatles memoria. So being a big Beatles fan and visiting Hamburg so many times, I've seen all the spots where they were, where they played, where they performed, all of these amazing places. And I think the Hamburg days were really special for the Beatles because it really formed them as a band. They lived in a super small apartment, they weren't really paid or anything, but looking back, John Lennon, Paul McCartney and George Harrison all said that their time in Hamburg was what really made them want to pursue music as a profession. So in the end they had to leave Hamburg after authorities found out that they were underage, and so they went back to Liverpool and actually went to school. So John Lennon, for example, at that time was a design student, and there's actually this interview with his half-sister where she said back when they used to perform in the Cavern Club, her parents always said, yeah, it's like the little thing that you do on the side, but you gotta focus on your studies. And that's another thing that made me pick this concert, and that makes me want to attend that concert so bad, because at that time the Beatles weren't that phenomenon. They were just four young guys making music, and they had no idea where all of this was going to take them. So enough history for now, let's go back to the makeup. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna apply some eyeliner to my upper lash line, and in the end I'm not gonna really wing it up, but I'm more so gonna take it straight out. So that was more of the classic 60s look, but I'm gonna show you what I do. So I'm gonna start by applying a very classic eyeliner. So as you can see, I kind of took out the eyeliner straight at the end to create that very 60s doll-like eye, and I'm just gonna do the exact same thing on the other eye. So to be historically correct, they obviously didn't use these types of eyeliners. I personally just think that this one is the easiest to use, and I feel like just take advantage of living in the 21st century and choose the one that's the easiest to handle for you. Okay, so I think to achieve that perfect 60s eyeliner, you really have to remember that the 60s eyeliner was kind of more on the thicker side. And then not to do like a super angled cat eye or very big one, but kind of taking it out straight, almost a little bit down in the ends. So next up I'm gonna draw on these iconic little twiggy lashes, and I know a lot of people like to use a very thin round brush. I however find it way easier to use this kind of brushes. This one is actually a lip brush, and it's just really fine in the front and you can almost kind of stamp it on. So I'm gonna use this one, and now I'm gonna use some black eyeshadow, and I'm just gonna use a very light hand to draw on some twiggy lashes. So I feel like back then, the Cavern Club must have felt like the center of the universe. It must have been so special to be there in the early days of this new era for music. And you gotta remember that the early 60s weren't only when a new era of music started. It was right when the Cultural Revolution happened. It was right on the verge of counterculture and all of these amazing things. The sexual liberation, the women's rights movement, all of these things were just about to happen. And thinking about being in the Cavern Club, listening to some good music and not knowing what was going to happen in the next couple of years must have been such an amazing and special feeling. So now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other eye. So to get these twiggy lashes so fine and even, all I really do is to use a very light hand, and if they are too long or anything, you can always fix it. So to finish off the eye makeup look, I'm just gonna use some mascara now. So the Cavern Club still exists, you can still go there. It's one of the places on my list where I really want to go as soon as like the whole pandemic and everything is over and traveling is possible again. And it's still a very special place. Paul McCartney played there in 1999, Ringo shot a movie there in the early 90s, so it's still a very important place and it's still very much connected with the Beatles. So keep in mind, it's the early 60s and young girls like me were really much going for that super doll-like look. So I'm gonna use this red lipstick and I'm just gonna use it as blush and as a bit of lipstick to just create a very youthful and cute look. So I'm just gonna put that on here and I'm just gonna rub it in with my fingers. Like this, you can also see my Beatles earrings. I really love them. And now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So back then, people were still pretty conservative. I feel like talking about the 60s in Liverpool, you often tend to forget that it wasn't London. Even though it was a big point for music, fashion and everything kind of more happened in London. So people in Liverpool in the early 60s weren't all wearing super mod outfits. The mini skirt wasn't really a thing yet. And so I feel like to be authentic with this, we are kind of going for more of a conservative look. Okay, and now I'm just gonna apply a bit of this on my lips as well. So I'm done with the makeup and now it's time to do my hair. So I'm gonna start by just brushing it. So I wanna go for a very classic early 60s look, which is kind of a bubble flip beehive kind of situation. But if you're kind of confused by that idea, don't worry, I'm gonna take you along with me. The first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna part my hair right here behind my bangs and kind of brush it back. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tease this layer by layer. So basically just use a small comb and just kind of brush against the way you would usually brush your hair. And then I'm gonna take the layer most in the front and I'm just gonna start to kind of brush it back without like losing all the volume you just created. Now I'm gonna take some hairspray, put it the way that you want it to kind of create like a more polished, more put together, finished look. So now to kind of cover it up, I'm gonna take some more strength of hair and I'm just gonna put them over the teased part. I feel like it's hard to explain, but by seeing it, I hope you can kind of tell what I'm doing. So that is step one to this very classic 60s hairstyle. And so next up we're gonna create that iconic classic 60s flip look. So I'm just using a straightener. I'm gonna straighten my hair and then flip it out in the end. So I'm gonna start by doing these like two front pieces, just removing that like slight natural curl that I usually have there. So as you can see, my hair structure is kind of wavy, and obviously back in the early 60s, straightening the hair would have been a whole other mission. Like back then, to straighten your hair actually meant to take a hot iron and straighten your hair like you would do laundry. So I'm basically just parting my hair back here in the middle and taking it to both sides of my head now. And now I'm just gonna brush through it one more time before adding the iconic flip. Okay, so to make this really easy, all you want to do is to take your hair and just flip it out like so. Depending on how much hair you have, you might want to do this section by section, but it's really easy because all you really do is style like the very ends of your hair. So as you can see in the end, all of these kind of come together and create that very cute little flip. Okay, so I know I said that this look is inspired by Pattie Boyd, which it is, but whenever I do a very classic 60s look, a lot of people comment under my pictures that I look like Jane Asher, which if you don't know who Jane Asher is, she basically was Paul McCartney's girlfriend at the time. Well, not in 62, but let's say from the mid 60s to the late 60s. So yeah, please feel free to leave a comment down below if you see the resemblance, because it's funny because there are some times where I'm like, yeah, now I see it, but then there are other pictures of her where I feel like we don't look alike at all, it's just the hair. But feel free to tell me what you think. As you can see, the hair is kind of coming together. So in the end, I like to take all of the hair a couple more times and like take them through this all together. But yeah, that is my finished look to go and see the Beatles play at the Cavern Club in 1962. I'm gonna put in some close-up shots of the outfit and the makeup and everything now, so you can properly see the entire look. I feel like this episode was kind of a bit different to the episode before because everyone knows the Beatles and everyone knows so much about the history of the Beatles that I really wanted to focus on those early years and the Cavern Club as a venue, because I feel like a lot of people always talk about the Cavern Club but don't really know what it was like, and so I really hope this video kind of gave you an idea. So if you enjoyed the video, I would love you to give it a thumbs up and maybe even share it with a friend. It supports me, it supports the channel, and it would mean so much. Also, feel free to leave a comment down below telling me which concert you would like to see featured next. I have so many concerts planned, but I would just love to know which concerts you guys are interested in. Also, if you attended this concert or any Beatles concert, please leave a comment down below telling me how it was. And so didn't a lot of people, so if you saw them, please share your story in the comments down below. I read every single comment, I try to reply to all of them, and I would just love you to share your story with me. If you're interested in all things 60s and 70s, subscribe to this channel because I upload multiple videos every single week all about the time. I hope you have an amazing day. Go out, enjoy the sunshine, take yourself some time to focus on you and your mental health today, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye guys!